Hi guys, today from the Oheka Castle in New Jersey. This is one of the very few castles in the United States. We are here in Long Island, and this is the second largest private property in the States. Today we'll talk about wealth, whether it is made or it is inherited, and I will debunk one of the major misconceptions about wealth and about billionaires. Stay with me till the next part of this video. Welcome back. Is wealth inherited or is wealth made? Most people think that the rich people are rich because they have inherited the wealth, because they had wealthy parents, they come from wealthy families, and that's how they became wealthy. And this is the way to be wealthy, to become wealthy. But in reality, most of the today's billionaires by far are self-made. Around 70%, 75% of our today's billionaires are self-made. They started from zero and they created billions of dollars in value within one lifespan. And all billionaires in my book, The $1 Billion Secret, are self-made. They started in conditions that you wouldn't like to be, in poor countries, in poor families, and they created their wealth themselves. And now I will tell you about one of the wealthiest people in history and his story, and why wealth doesn't get really inherited, why wealth, in contrast to the common misconception, to the common stereotype, doesn't really get passed from generation to generation. Why it doesn't work that way. I will make another video about Cornelius Vanderbilt when I talk about his career and how he became so wealthy, but today I will tell you just the facts about what happened after that. So Cornelius Vanderbilt made his money with steamboats and later with railroads, and when he died he had a fortune of $100 million, and you can't imagine how much money it was back in 1877 when he died. I suppose there were different evaluations of that wealth, of that fortune in recent years. In 2007 they calculated it would be worth $134 billion, measured in the purchasing power of the dollars of the year 2007. And since then the purchasing power actually dropped by factor 3, more or less. So you would have something, it's difficult to say, but let's say worst case it is around $300 billion of today's dollars. This is the wealth that Cornelius Vanderbilt has created in 19th century. This was actually the first capitalist, the creator of corporate America that you could find. All the other great, so let's say, industry barons, American barons, like Rockefeller, like Carnegie, like Mellon, all these people came after Cornelius Vanderbilt. And Cornelius had 13 children, but he didn't want to dispense his wealth. His wealth should be passed undivided in order to be able for the next generation to keep that wealth. And he passed that wealth to only one child, to one of his sons, who was the most hardworking, they had the best business acumen. He passed everything to his son, and the other 12 children didn't get anything. Of course they sued then and tried to get something, And yeah, they won some suits, some processes, and then they got the 12 of them. They got 10% of the fortune of Cornelius Vanderbilt. So roughly 1% of that fortune each of them. But this one son got 90%, around $90 million at that time, would be probably above $250 billion of today's value. And he promised his father, Cornelius Vanderbilt, that he will also pass the entire fortune to his one son, to only one child, and not divide it up between children. But as life progressed, he had 8 children, and he decided to actually divide up this wealth. And he did. He multiplied the wealth he has inherited from his father by 2. He died with a wealth of roughly $200 million. So each of his children got between 20 and 40 million dollars. But this was, so to say, the primal sin. And since then, the next generations, they divided that money further and further. And of course, they hadn't made that money themselves. And that's why they didn't value the money that much, and they didn't have the business acumen to actually multiply that money and create maybe new ventures and so on. They didn't have the perseverance, the hard working attitude that Cornelius Vanderbilt had, and they had also the spending habits. They loved luxury. They loved to live a pretentious life, to give parties, to travel a lot, and to spend that money. And that way it happened that the fortune of the wealthiest person of 19th century got dispensed, so to say, diluted more and more. And you have to realize that when Cornelius Vanderbilt died, he had more money than American government, than the American state, than the Treasury of America. He had more money than one of the wealthiest at that time countries in the world. That was the wealth of that guy. And guess what? 100 years later, after the death of Cornelius Vanderbilt, the Vanderbilt family gathered together, roughly 90, 100 people, the descendants of Vanderbilt. And guess what? None of these people was even a millionaire. We are not talking about billionaires, not even a millionaire, none of them. Because the money got divided up and got wasted over the generations. And this is why the conception that wealth gets inherited and people are wealthy because they had wealthy parents or they have inherited, in most cases, this is absolutely wrong. Because next generations, they get lazy, they get soft, they grow their lifestyles, their spending grows, but their business acumen, their perseverance, all these traits that I have described in the book The $1 Billion Secret, these get diminished, they don't get developed, and the people just unable to even keep the money, and we are not talking about multiplying the money. So the third, the fourth, the fifth generation, they just give away, they generally waste the money. So the story of Cornelius Vanderbilt and his descendants is a great example to prove that point. That's it for today from Oheka Castle in Long Island. I wish you a fantastic day. Let's do something extraordinary today.